Okay, this is The Future of Indie Publishing According to Publishers by BiteMe Games. Let's see what it's about. What is the future of indie games publishing?
More on them later. Let's talk about publishing. It's probably going to be the main topic that we had here for our studio at Gamescom. The thing that I really want, or Gamescom and DevCom, I
I want
guess.
to go to Gamescom.
The thing that I really wanted to learn more about. And I have learned a lot today. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about now. I've been able to talk to various publishers, Team 17, PlayStack, some consultants to publishing
Team 17's
and
good.
things like that, to ask them, like, what the hell is going on? How am I going to get my game published, if ever? Because if you don't know,
Is this his game?
for Gamescom, so not DevCom but Gamescom, we will be pitching Guild Architect, one of our games that we're working on right now, and my hopes are pretty low. I think that's maybe not the best mindset to go in with, that defeatist mindset, but we have to face the facts. There was this beautiful stat that I saw earlier today.
Looks ugly. What's it called? Guild Architect? Play test. Password is required. Our current game is failing hard. What are they trying to do with it, though?
I'm not going to more nuance to it. I think
Next Fest was bad. Okay, so you went. Okay, so they went on to Next Fest, so their game is on here. I don't see it. I want to watch this whole thing, but I just want to see some gameplay of their game. Is this their game?
just like we did, because making them good turns out is kind of hard. So this was the
Oh, wait, this was their... Wait. Where's their game? I can't even... Here's the problem. I can't even find their game. We're starting a new game. Okay, but where's the, like, gameplay of it? Where's their trailer? I'm pretty sure if you Google Cauldron Chronicles, our trailer is pretty damn near the top of it. And mine might be a... Oh, a Journey of... Okay, that's pretty cool too. Yeah, we have the prototype level trailer. Pretty damn close. I mean, that's not even the good one. This is the good one here. But I searched Guild Architect game, and I don't see the trailer. Why Guild Architect will fail? Maybe if you didn't make a video saying why our game will fail, you might have a little bit more success talking to publishers. Just a thought. Guild Architect pitch deck. Okay. Feels like YouTube game devs.
Good morning, everyone. It's currently 7 finished the like 50 a mouse weld. This is about the shortest I can hook this basically in terms of text. Some other pages suggested to me like the vibe much more than.
I want to pause it, but I don't want to see this bullshit. God,
like,
Jesus Christ, it's fucking annoying.
GIFs up on here. This first slide is
Manage an adventure, guild,
now,
create quests, keep adventures
what I would
happy, and
actually
amass wealth.
suggest, and what other publishers have suggested to me, but this doesn't work in the Gamescom setting basically, is your first slide is actually not this hook and like text and things like that, but it's actually a 30-second mini trailer basically.
Yeah, you should, I'll put it this way, like what I know about pitching, you should just start with gameplay. Let the gameplay speak for itself.
Because
and that's what we did.
Encapsulate the vibe much more than writing.
Yeah, the writing
like,
text is not important.
Put some GIFs
Show some
here.
gameplay.
The thing is, it doesn't really give as much of a vibe as just having a 30.
The thing is, most people know what like a management game is, right? So if you're pitching to publishers that already have a lot of management games in their wheelhouse, You don't need to explain what a management game is. They get it. And this speaks much more than this does, because this shows, okay, we see style, we see camera perspective, we see some basic UI on the screen.
So this is it.
Just jump
Thomas
into it.
Will be talking a bit more about it still, but
and you need to remember that most of the time, if you're pitching a game that's this specific into this genre, you're probably pitching to publishers that have already made these types of games. They don't need explanation for it. Quest to grade. This is... This pitch deck is kind of lacking. Maybe it's just me. I don't know if this is the full pitch deck, but this gameplay is fine. This is kind of lacking. These other slides don't really mean much, like quest grading. And this one too, I don't even know, like, okay, self-governing adventures, emergent narrative. Sure, but then you need to explain what that means.
We just create our own stories through the ways that the adventurers can interact with each other. There's actually quite a lot of complex code behind it, where they can start relationships, they can form parties.
Okay, yeah, shit like that. Okay,
that, and you can
that's
see
fine.
like the entire life of the adventure.
That's fine. Best presentation about marketing indie games ever. They were on GDC. What is this? We're getting so off track, by the way. Oh, this is okay. I this is all. Just yeah, Cult of the Lamb did things well. Good developers, good game. But this is not their current game. This is some other game. I mean, they were smart to move. If Steam Next Fest went poorly and impressions weren't great. Oh god, yeah. Where's their wish list?
Songs of Evertate. We've got more about. You can have the most beautiful. We had.
It isn't much. New game, yeah, might as well go for new game. I mean, that was smart. If the game isn't doing successful, analyze why it wasn't successful. If you can change it, go ahead. If you can't, you need to move on. And it looks like they moved on to a new game. Guild Architect. Streamed 1 month ago, so they're already starting to work on it. I don't know what phase of development they're on. They already have quite a lot of art. Looks more on the YouTube side of game dev? Okay. I mean, I don't know. I don't see much about the game yet, so I can't really say a whole lot about it. Get Forge into... Wait, are they calling it Forge Industry, or... Oh, this is their other game. Do they have a website? It just feels like they have no good location to actually learn about their game. I don't know.
Today that made me want to cry, where
Okay.
for like every 1,000 pitches, basically, only like
1,000 first contact, 253 follow-up meeting, 170 thesis fit, yeah, play session 86, signed 1.6. That sounds about right. It's easy to get first contact. Publishers will meet with anybody who has a game. The follow-up meeting is the important part, is actually keeping that moving forward. And the thing is, you're going to meet a lot of publishers, but they may not be right for you, and you may not be right for them. Or a lot of people have that first contact, they don't see any great signs of success, and they just stop making their game.
6 or something actually gets approved. That's like almost 0.1% of pitches get accepted. And don't get me wrong, publishing used to be hard always. Like, generally it used to be like 1% of all pitches get published at the end of the day, which still seems very insurmountable. But at the end of the day, that's like still, it's not horrible. It's like, hey, if I do 100 pitches, I'll get there eventually. Now it feels like with all of the news about the layoffs, we had a meeting planned with Humble Games, for example, and Humble Games doesn't exist anymore. So in this video, I'll talk a little bit more about a few things. First of all, well, I'm not going to talk about what is a publisher. If you don't know that yet, basically they give you money to make your game. Second of all, what are the things publishers are looking for in games? And
I mean, here's the thing about this number that we saw back here, because, I'm thinking about it. This just means that they received an email, 1,000, okay? So roughly 1/4 of their emails they receive, they have a follow-up meeting on. I would say that that's about accurate. That's pretty good. That's actually better than I thought. Because if they get past this, you're okay. I would not compare 1.6 to the 1,000. I would compare 1.6, in my opinion, to the 1.7 or to the 170. And it's still not the greatest number. It's still about 1 out of 100, right? But that's at least a more reasonable number, is that, okay, we talked, your game seems like it might fit us, now let's go on from there. Rather than, oh, you sent an email, so we're going to consider you as part of this number. Yeah, it's like, sure, I could send, I don't know, 69 Simulator to Ghost Ship Games. Obviously, that's a first contact. That doesn't mean they're going to talk to me. And I bet that happens a lot.
Can I, as a developer, bring that to the table? And I think this is a very difficult question, and no real single solid concrete answer for this exists. But I think I have some good ideas. And the third thing is, how should I plan for going for publishing? Because there are some sad things there as well. And the first thing is being aware that, hey, if you somehow were under a rock, game publishing has changed a lot in the last mainly last 2 years, really, because you need to understand, why was this drop there? Well, with COVID, everyone was pumping money into games, because games, they were being played non-stop because everyone was stuck at home.
That'll recover.
But games take a lot of time to make, so investments made in 2020 were starting to release in 2022. Investments made in 2021 came out in 2023. The problem is 2023 then came around and suddenly nobody was buying games anymore. Take that into account with also an inflation, recession, all of that. Like, people weren't spending as much money anymore. So you end up.
Yeah, we talked about that. We went to Digital Dragons this year and we pitched the game, and we realized that it's going to be very difficult to get funding for our game. That's why we need our game to stand out, so that the little money that these publishers are willing to spend at the moment has a higher likelihood of going towards us. That is what it is. So I don't know. It will recover. It's just that COVID, it fucked it up. Everybody was giving out money, handouts. It was easy to get a game published. Now it's going to be a bit harder, but it will recover. It will get back to a more normal experience, especially with AAA kind of shooting itself in the foot. I think more money will start to seep into AA and indie, a lot more than it used to be.
With a lot of games that have hundreds of thousands, like $500,000, $1 million plus put into it, barely like getting 100K, 200K, which means the publishers lose a lot of money. A good example for this is Tiny Build, whose stock prices have just been dramatically dropping, and they had to fire a lot of people. Humble Games fired people. Like I said, their entire publishing division shut down overnight, basically. And it's not great. But what are the things that publishers are funding when they are still funding games? Because that's what we want to know. Like, we don't want to know about how sad the industry is. You want to know, how do I get my own game published? And the answer to this is relatively easy, but also it's like, basically it boils down to just make a good game, bro. And this is the dumbest answer. I know you're gonna hate me now, but that's basically what the publishers are saying
right.
Also. Or just make a good game and we'll fund it. And it's like, yeah, that's not how it works. So what makes a good game? What are they looking for? They're looking for games with high, not per se replayability, like I can play for 100 hours, but more of, hey, I want replayability in terms of I play this once and then I want to do it back. Even if it's just a demo, like the demos you send to publishers, they should already be highly replayable. The publishers enjoy the game and they feel like, hey, there's potential here, because if we want to keep playing it, our audience as well. It doesn't need to be a 20-hour long game, and don't pride yourself on the fact that your game is long, but just have it be something that people like.
He's 100% right about that. It's not about length anymore, except for some things it is. But it was never about, it's not about length anymore. When you had back then, you had people playing the same games for a long time because it was long, there was more period of time between game releases. Nowadays, people just want something that is replayable but with a smaller loop, easier to finish, easier to get through. And so a 20-hour game is a very, very okay experience for a lot of people. It doesn't need to be a million hours. It can just be, look at Black Myth Wukong. I don't know how long it's going to take to beat Black Myth Wukong. I doubt that it is over 100 hours though. Or if it is, it's gonna be pretty damn close to 100 hours. So you beat it in like a week or two for most people, I would say, or maybe 1 month at max, and then you move on. It's a single player game. I promise you will see Black Myth Wukong hits 1.4 million concurrent players, and then there's going to be articles. I promise you there will be articles. Clip this. In 2 months of people saying Black Myth Wukong has lost 90% of its player base. Yeah, because it's a single player game. Duh. Hello, cute lesbian. Hey, Mr. Fibo.
Another thing to keep in mind is how do publishers work. This was a great talk I had from Team 17, is that let's say for every 10 games, this is kind of made up, but this is the general idea, is for
Those
every
are
10
stupid,
games, they'll have 5 games that are like surefire bets. So those are like, your Steam games that are going to do good. They're like sim games, the things that Playway is publishing basically. And then you also have like, let's say they invest out of those 10 games they fund, 5 of those are like the safe bets. And then they take 5 more risks, and like they look there for breakout successes where, hey, this could...
Have you heard about the people are complaining about their terms of use? Oh, for like the streaming for Black Myth Wukong? Yeah, those were fucked up. Don't criticize China. Not everything has to be a forever game. No, it doesn't have to be. The problem is, like, these sim games like Playway produces, they are popular. But I still fucking hate Playway.
Out of those 10 games they fund, 5 of those are like the safe bets. And then they take 5 more risks, and like they look there for breakout successes where, hey, this could not go anywhere, or we could get something like Balatro, where it's suddenly like $20 million plus, which, hey, PlayStack had a big W on that one. But that is something that, isn't always as easy for you. The problem is as well that safe approach is kind of the boring approach, because what was the recent one? I think it's like crime scene cleaning just came out, and it's like, yeah, it takes that same formula, but it's like it's just a new setting, but there's nothing always too crazy about it, but it sells. Those are the safe approaches. But that's not what a lot of gamers want. You're probably making some crazy games. And for those ideas to get funded, basically, you need to be one of those people they take risks on. But right now, publishers don't want to take that many risks. Anyways.
No, they don't.
What does this all boil down to? They want, by general, however much money you're asking for, there's no like too low, all right, there's a too low number. Don't go for less than, I would say 50, 75, even 100K. If you ask for less, it's often not worth it for the publisher to put in the time and the effort to go through all of the vetting, to go through all of it. You're looking at 100, 150K minimum for
it. Depends on the publisher that you're going to. Some publishers are willing to do that, but it just depends on the number of people they need to staff and the amount of work that they need to do for that product, right? If you go in asking for 25, 50,000, but you need them to handle like marketing, localization, porting as well, it's like, okay, well, this is now way more expensive, but on our side. So, you can easily get 25, 50,000 from a publisher as long as the agreement is not overreaching that budget to some extent, if that makes sense. But he's right, publishers are not taking risks right now. I think they will. Just it needs some time. The game industry needs some time to recover from all this bullshit that's going on.
To go through all of the vetting, to go through all of it, you're looking at 100, 150K minimum for your funding, going all the way up to $500,000 is what I would say. There used to be a time where it used to be more, but right now it's $500,000. I think is the most you could reasonably ask. And if you're doing that, you need to be able to basically guarantee to the publisher that you're going to get a 3 times. You need to be able to, I think,
500,000, yeah, minus 500. Developer gets nothing. It's pretty accurate. Equipment of investment in games takes place. That takes time. Profits then shared on agreed revenue share. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah. 250 to the developer after $1 million in revenue earned by the game. Yeah. Here's the thing: like different publishers have different, amounts of money that they're willing to spend. Simple as that. But the best thing you can do is just diversify your investments.
guarantee to the publisher that you're going to get a 3 times return investment. So if you have a game you ask $500,000 for, you in their pitch, or like when you're pitching the game to them already, you need to be like, hey, these are all the games I believe this game can make $1.5 million, because then it starts to get worthwhile for the investor or for the publisher if they can get more than 3x their initial investment. And you're gonna sound like, hey, this is dumb, this is too much, like what the hell? But this is just the reality right now, so don't get mad. Another thing as well is that they're not just looking for games that have guaranteed returns on investments. This is the very common one you hear. Basically, publishers want finished games when you pitch them. Okay, they don't want fully finished games, but I think honestly, if you gave them a fully finished game, they would still say. They're like, yeah, we wouldn't do it because we need to add our marketing stuff. I think that's bullshit. Gonna be honest. If you give them a fully finished game, like 2 weeks for this, hey, you want to jump on the ship, give us some money right now, and we can make this work, then I think every publisher would take the deal. It's free money at the end of the day. The thing is, on that opposite side of the spectrum, there was this period, 2017, like 2020, like I said, you have a pitch deck, you have a meeting, and you have a game design document. And that's it. Bam, you've gotten 100K, 6 figures, here, buy my course. That is...
It was kind of like that, but it also, there's a lot of factors that go into whether or not a publisher is just going to give you money for a pitch deck and a GDD. Yes, it's less common than it used to be, but it's also that they're seeing more games now than they used to, so they can pick and choose a lot more. Second would be that if you are an established company and you go to a publisher, you've already made games, you're more likely to get in with less, right? Because they know that you can make games, they know you have a team, you've proven yourself. When you are a new developer, a new studio like we are, right? You do need to go in with some credentials and say, well, I know what I'm doing, I've been in this role before, or I've done this before, or here's what we've made. That's why the better first playable, the better we can do with our first playable, even though it's slightly more than you should, well, it's quite a bit more than you would do for a traditional first playable for a game, the better we can look. Because they can say, okay, well, this one developer was able to do all this bullshit, or in our case, it's more like 3 developers, 3 or 4, can do this much, even with, working on their free time, just being able to, work here and there without any funding. Well, with funding, we can assume that is going to increase in quality even more than it already is. So it's like you can get your foot in the door easily. Getting a first meeting with a publisher is pretty damn easy to do. They meet with dozens of people each conference. Getting that follow-up meeting is what you want. Getting that. And the best way you can get that is by having a playable product, because they're going to want to be able to play the game and see how it feels according to your creation and to prove that you know what you're doing. That's what our goal is. But he's 100% right. It's way harder to get that first meeting and get past that first meeting than it ever has been. And the best way you can do that is by having something playable, having something completable. Don't just make a mock-up. Make part of the game. Make that vertical slice. Vertical slice is your golden ticket for a publisher. If you don't have that, at least have a first playable. But if you go in with anything less than a first playable, good fucking luck, unless you have a massive library of games that you've already made and that you can prove that you know what you're doing if they give you money, and you can get started right away if they give you money. It's just not going to happen unless you have the first playable.
It's gone. It sucks, but it's gone. So what do they look for then? Well, they look for a variety of other things. And the main takeaway that I got was that they were looking for evidence that that game was going to be successful. Like, yes. How do you get that 1.5 million? Because it's not just showing like, hey, this is how my game looks right now and it's beautiful and all of that. That's what the traditional approach was. You go to a publisher, and if you were too early, the game didn't look good enough yet. They're like, hey, come back later. The comeback later, by the way, always ask what they want exactly. Don't just be like, oh, we'll just pitch again in 3 months and keep working. Don't do that. Ask the publisher what they're looking for, like back them into a corner, but ask them nicely, basically, and see how would they respond. Do they want more visuals? Do they want more gameplay? Do they want more wish lists or whatever? There are other ways, however, that you can also convince publisher, and this is something that I always tell you guys, but you never listen, or at least there are like comments of people who don't listen. It's like, oh yeah, I shouldn't get my Steam page up because it's part of the publisher. Like the publisher does the marketing, they want that like magic sauce.
You can transfer Steam page ownership. You should have Steam page. He's right, because he mentioned Steam wishlist. By the way, the more wish lists you have before approaching a publisher, that is just free verification that people already want your game. Like Steam wishlist is one of the best ways that you can convince a publisher that people want your game. Now, I did mention there's a reason why we haven't done that yet, because I want to do that when we have something that's more reasonable to show, like a vertical slice. You don't have to do it that way. You can have it up when you have a first playable or when you have early access, whatever. But there's two extremes. Not having one at all looks really bad, and having one that is up way too early is really bad as well. So, like, not too late, not too early. Have it up, have something to showcase that you actually have a following of your game. Instead of Steam, we're using our Discord and our stats here on Twitch, because we are live streaming the development, to show that people are looking forward to this game and to build up that hype before we convert all these people over, as many people as we can, over to like a Steam page or a Kickstarter. There's different plans here, but having a plan of how you're going to convert people or how you're going to build up that base is incredibly important. He's not wrong about that at all.
Sauce basically of announcing the game and doing all of that, like launch and reveal and things like that. If that is the mindset you have, I can guarantee you are not getting published right now.
Yep.
Because you need to keep in mind, maybe that's what you think. There are other developers out there who do know the reality of the current game they've seen. And what they do is they have that Steam page up, they start gathering wishlists already, and then they step to a publisher when they have 10k wishlists or whatever. And they're like, hey, look, we've validated this for you.
Yep.
We've got the game. We've
Validation.
got like, some people who did the playtest. We've got a Discord server with people.
Big steps show your essential gameplay mechanics above world building, show that what you wish to make is possible. And it depends on game genre, right? But essentially, that tip is valid, right? It's just, is it fun? Simple as that. And if for your game, like I was thinking, like, okay, walking simulators, well, there's not much gameplay to them, right? But if you can show that exploring the world, which is part of the gameplay, also part of the world building, is fun, that's the core to your walking simulator, right? Like Dear Esther or something, or Vanishing of Ethan Carter. Good, perfect. If your gameplay is some fast roguelike combat game, make it enjoyable. Or is it makeable? Redefine that. I mean, I guess we both mean proof, right? We're all three of us, you, me, this guy, we all just proof that your game is actually as fun as you say it is, or that it does what you say it is. Say it does, right? Because if it's just paper, you're not going to convince people of anything.
People in it who are interested in the game and who have been playing it, we're looking now for more funding. Those developers have infinitely more chance of being funded than you, even if they had a objectively worse idea than whatever cool thing it is that you're thinking about. So basically every publisher that I've talked to now
cool
is get a Steam page up, do your own marketing first, and I think this ties very well into the next point I want to talk about, and that is that I think in the current economy, and it's not just me, this was Jason Della Rocca did a talk about this, assume you're going to have to self-publish your game. The moment you start development, immediately assume we're never getting funding for this. No way. We have to do all of the marketing ourselves. We have to do everything ourselves. We have to find funding for that initial prototype, for everything. Assume the worst. Assume that...
He's right about that. You can have the greatest ideas, have something visually pleasing, but if the underlying code, gameplay mechanics are not easily makeable, it won't become what you want it to. Yeah, that's where you would just get rid of the unknowns, right? So if you can have the greatest idea for a game, but if it's just going to take 1 million people to code some bullshit networking feature, well, it's not a game that can be made. It's an idea, at best. And he's right that, what did he say? He said, do your own marketing. Assume that you can't fund your prototype, or that somebody else isn't going to fund your prototype. Exactly. And that's what we're doing with Golden Chronicles. I'm assuming that we're not going to get any funding until our first playable is done. And even then, it's going to be difficult. So what do? I say I suck it up, kiss my bank account goodbye. I'm willing to put in whatever time and work necessary to make the entire first playable myself if I have to. Thankfully, we've had some amazing people been able to help us out part-time or quite a bit from the start until now, and I hope that continues. But if not, I'm willing to do everything that I need to on my own, market on my own, get that Steam page up, start to convert people over. That's going to be just kind of a waiting game at a certain point. But he's right. If you need to go in, you need to put in the work. You can't just go in with an idea, because anybody can go in with a great idea and even be able to make a small prototype of like one of the features. No, you need to show everything. You need to have a good plan. You need to have a milestone plan. You need to have a budget. And if your budget and milestone plan look like shit, which is already one of the hardest things to make when you're in pre-production, you're not going to get any funding because it's just going to look too risky. It's going to look like you don't know what you're doing.
That you're going to have to do everything. And once you have reached that stage in like end of pre-production, early production, where you do have that playable build, for example, and you can start gathering wish lists, you can start marketing, like immediately do things like starting tweeting about the prototype for the game that you're making or whatever. Build that up, because that is going to be what a publisher wants, and that is also going to be what they're looking for. That's that evidence I'm talking about. It's not just having a game that like is a good game. It's also showing that people will buy it. If you have 10,000 wish lists, you show to the publisher, people will buy this. And then the publisher can basically calculate, hey, okay, I just need to get more wish lists, which sure, they can do marketing probably, depends on the publisher, and then we'll get guaranteed money. Now, do remember that, hey, wish lists are not 100% a good indication.
No, they're not. Yeah, it's like there's a general conversion ratio, but every game is going to have a different conversion ratio between these things. So wish lists are good. Wish lists are one of the best because those are people that will be directly notified via email and on their library page of information about that game or when it gets released, right? Or when it goes on sale. So wish lists are one of the most direct ways to gauge interest in your game. And it's an easy to use metric on the platform that sells that game itself. So wish lists are good. Wish lists are good, but they're not everything.
Of how many sales you're gonna get. Skim was a very good example of this, that released with 230k wishlist, but as like less than 100 reviews, I think, last time I checked, which is kind of sad.
It's really sad.
The playism definitely didn't get their cut on that one, I think. So there is still always going to be some risk. I think those
230k wishlist on that game seems a bit sus. I'll just put it out this. Holy shit, dude. Black Myth Wukong has 2.2 million people. Holy shit. That beat Pal World for the most concurrent players. Wow, dude, that's wild. 200 million US dollars in one day. There's quite a lot, I'll tell you that. What was I saying? This Skim game. This feels weird. It had that many wish lists but that few players. I don't know, dude. I'm not going to say anything. I think that though 230,000 wish lists for a game that only sells that many copies, it was either overpriced or I'm calling a little sus on that. $25. That is pretty expensive for what it is, but that wouldn't account for all of it. This game shouldn't have been more than $15 though. I'm sorry to say. There's something weird about that. Yeah, I know the game. It's a cool idea, but $25? How much gameplay does it have? The name I don't think helps it either. It is a unique $25 for 3 hours. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe it would have sold some more copies if they weren't charging you an arm and a leg for 3 hours of gameplay. As unique as the gameplay is, I'm sorry, but that should not have been any more than $10. And this came out long enough ago, by the way, July 18th. This came out 1 month ago. That if they're having this poor sales, they need to reduce the price of this game by 50%. That's just handled very, very poorly. How long is Goose Game? Goose Game is even longer, I think. It's not on Steam. I don't think. Or wasn't initially. That's about 3 to 6. I feel like though this game was more fun to 100% than Skim might be. I can't say for sure. But it was more fun to dick around and 100% Untitled Goose Game. Because it had that humor factor to it. What is on Steam? It wasn't initially on Steam though. Yeah, I don't know, dude. 230,000 wishlist for Skim. Running theory, no proof. I think that some of those were paid for. I would never do this, but just know, yeah, it's probably available. Just saying. I think some is an underestimate. I don't know. There's something really fucked up about that. I don't even know if this site's legit or not, but yeah, there's something weird. I don't know.
Those things are very important. Showcasing also that you've released games before is a very important
Yes,
one.
it is. Yes, it is. And that's one of the mistakes that I kind of made this latest pitching round, is that I didn't emphasize enough that I've already been a developer, and how many years of experience that I have developing games. That one was something that I didn't emphasize enough this year, and that I'm going to re-emphasize next year.
That is also another way of evidence. If you're a brand new team and things like that, it's going to be harder.
Yep.
But okay, so quick recap. You're making a game and you're getting good feedback from playtesters. You need to have playtesters basically, and they keep playing the game. You have Chris Yugowski has this thing of like, hey, median demo time. If it's more than like 30 minutes, it's great. If it's more than 65, it's like you're golden. Go for things like that. Have that validation in advance. Have evidence. Don't just have the.
I'm hoping that at the end of Cauldron Chronicles' prototype, and it is a slower game. That doesn't mean that it's better, but I'm hoping that we will have 3 NPCs and all of the mechanics in the game. So maybe like 1 dungeon, potion combat, some puzzles. I would expect that our demo might be 3 to 4 hours if you just play at a normal average rate. And you don't try to speed run it. You try to, you get to every little bit of content and play a little bit of each of all the content. I would say 3 to 4 hours is going to be a pretty damn good estimation of how much gameplay there will be to it.
The game, have wishlist, have followers, have Discord people, have people who've playtested your game, giving you feedback about it, if you be able to iterate upon, getting them as well, on top of having a good game and having a game that fits the market as well. Like, you could have the greatest game. If it was a 2D puzzle platformer, it's probably not going to show a lot of evidence that, hey, it's going to be successful and we should publish this. So that is part one.
Your demo sounds like a full game. Well, I mean, compared to Skim and Untitled Goose Game, it is. But the thing is that I think those games are both a bit faster to get through than Cauldron. I think Cauldron Chronicles is very much a. Let me put it this way: how much of Stardew Valley do you reasonably expect to get through in 3 to 4 hours? At best, maybe half of Spring. It's just a slower paced game. There's a lot to do. It takes a bit of time. You're not really encouraged to just wake up, water your plants, and go back to bed, right? So you try to make the most of a day. How long is one day in Stardew Valley? In real time. $18. So let's say if you don't go to 2 a.m., right? Probably 15 minutes. Oh, it says 14. Okay, so about 12 minutes. So 60 divided by 12 is 5. So you can get through, I would say, about most of spring, but not necessarily all of spring in Stardew Valley in 4 hours. So it's like, you don't really see much of the game because the seasonal changes are really important. There are things that don't even happen until year 2. You can only complete, I think, a couple of the community challenges within only spring, and that's really if you know what you're doing. So, yeah, I think Cauldron Chronicles will have a lot of playtime, but I think it's going to be much slower paced and more spread out than a very, very dense game like. Well, let's just use Binding of Isaac as an example. If you play 20 minutes of Binding of Isaac on your first run, you've probably experienced a couple runs. and you kind of get what the game is going for, and you're probably already hooked.
Then once you have that game that you are like pretty certain, like, hey, this can be funded, like this is what publishers want, which is already a tall task. I'm very much oversimplifying here. What do you do then? Well, you start the conversations with publishers, and you have that like 0.1% of pitches get accepted thing. This is an important one to keep in mind if you have runway. If you are not someone who's like, oh, I've started working on this on the side, but I actually need money like sooner rather than later. Because this is something else that the indie publishing landscape has changed in a lot. How the time between getting your first pitch meeting and like having the contract and seeing the money in your bank account. This
a lot of time.
Used to be, if you were lucky, about a month. If you were unlucky, like 3 months. And it was like, hey, if the publishers were down, they do 3 months and they do some due diligence and that's it. Or like, that's not it, but 3 months, it's acceptable. Especially 1 month, it's like, hey, if I can get funding for my game, it's worth a month of effort. Problem is, as part of that evidence, it's not just evidence that comes from you. The publisher will do what they call due diligence. They'll look at their own market research. They'll be like, hey, is this pitch deck just bamboozling us, or does this developer know what he's talking about? How much risk is there for us? Are we going to get our investment back, yes or no? And because they are putting more scrutiny, so to say, in that validation, you get the problem now where a quick timeline is 3 months between your original pitch and you get the money in your bank account. If you're unlucky, it's 6 months. So in our case, for example, Guild Architect, we want to release it in Q2 2025. Yeah.
Q2 2025. Okay, so like a year. At most a year. I mean, it's already end of Q2, isn't it?
Problem is, we're now basically September, almost.
Yeah, we're in Q3.
If it takes 6 months for that, because from pitching to getting signed, let's say worst case.
1 year. 1 year to make their game. I assume that they've already made their vertical slice, but if not, that's not much time to make their game.
Basically get the money when we were planning to release the game. So those are also things that you need to keep in mind with your pitch decks and things like that. Everything gets slower, and you need to keep that in mind as well. If you have only 2 months of runway and you're like panic messaging publishers, you're probably toast. If you have 6 months of runway, okay, you're doing better. Right now is the point to really, if you need the money and you don't see another way, start messaging publishers now. I can't guarantee that it's gonna happen, but at least if a publisher is like, hey, this is a good idea and we do think there's evidence and we do want to fund it, then you don't have the problem of, I'm not gonna exist by the time the publisher signs the contract.
Yeah, he's 100% right about this. Like for sure, it takes more time than it used to, and if you just can't afford to keep the lights on, and that's also a benefit, by the way. If you have a cheaper monthly costs than a larger studio, you can build up a lot of credit with a publisher, and you can try kind of like prove to them that you're not just there to see quick money and then exit or run away at the first sight of trouble. So one of like the things that Microraptor has in its benefit right now is that we cost that much money per month right now. And we can build up this rapport. We can say, okay, you're still looking for more from the game. Fine. We'll keep working on it. Easy. We plan to do it anyway. We will keep going until we have what we feel is a very, very, very solid prototype that we can show it to you with a well-made GDD, well-made pitch deck, well-made marketing and budget plan. We don't usually do the marketing, but we can always give some advice of how we want to release this game and future plans for it. Build that up now, because it'll just make you look more professional and look like you've actually thought this through, and you're not just, oh, I'll make game, give to publisher, I make money, and then game gets made, right? It's like we need to plan this out and actually create it. And if you're asking for a lot of money, like we are, that needs to be part of it. We need to make sure that we go the extra mile, that we are part of that 1.6 out of 1,000 that gets that signing. It's going to take time. It's going to take a hell of a lot of work, but most people quit off very, very early. Like I said, for 1,000, for people who quit, let's just say, this is still in game, or this is the actual amount of time. This is still in game, and this is like still people still working on a game's development, and this is time. They have their 1,000 up here, right? I think most drop off, at least 25% drop off the moment that there's no response from a developer or from a publisher. and they stop making the game. They're like, okay, well, we tried and we failed, so that's not going to work. And then it's a pretty sharp decline between the next meeting that they have and, you know, the meeting doesn't go well, so they're not going to publish it right. If we got said no by some publishers after Golden Chronicles, I know people, I have friends who just stopped making their game because no publishers contacted them back or a publisher said no. And then from there, it's just a long grind of staying in the game long enough to where you have a good enough product at the end of it here that a publisher's like, okay, we know that you know what you're doing. Let's give you the money. Let's get this started. You just can't give up. It's perseverance. Like you said, make good game, and then I would add on to that perseverance. Just stop giving up. Don't consider it part of your vocabulary.
That's another big downside that you don't want. So publishing, it's something that I am going to be learning a lot about this week. I think I told you that before already.
I am
if
too.
you are interested in publishing and I want to run my own studio, I want to find more ways of revenue and funding and all of that. I want to see how BiteMe Games is doing it because we're like trying out everything basically. Then I highly recommend going over to our Patreon. We post extra videos there every Monday, talking about, for example, our pitch deck for Guild Architect is the one that I uploaded today as well there. It's a very good video if you ask me. There's some things that maybe, you know, are not going to be perfect yet, but it's going to give you more starting points. I've also talked to a lot of publishers before, not for pitching our games exactly, but just for learning what are they looking for. And I talk about it in there as well. I talk about the industry and I talk about more things generally that don't really fit on
Damn, dude, I release all this shit for free. You're telling me I could have made money by putting out these videos?
this YouTube channel because I need to be like following the algorithm and hyper edited videos and things like that. So if that's something
I like
that you're
releasing it for
interested in,
free.
like I said, go to Patreon. Apart from that, I'm really curious, do you have any publisher related questions? Because right now it's
I know I still can, but the thing is I'm not going to gate my knowledge behind a paywall. There are other ways to make money. I don't think that blocking education behind a paywall is what I think is ethical to me.
Monday. I think I'm going to be humbled and I'm going to be learning a very high amount of things in the next few days when we're going to be meeting and pitching publishers as well. So if you have any questions that you think like, hey, could you maybe elaborate a bit more on what you would do in this case with publishing, for example, let me know in the comments down below. I'll try to answer them. If I don't have an answer immediately, you can always join our Discord or Patreon, like I said, and I'll post updates there as well. So apart from that, this is kind of a bit of a weird video. I don't know how highly edited this is going to be because once again, I'm just pumping out content for DevCon, Gamescom. It's going to be a very busy week, so you want to be subscribed because you'll get notified every time basically
I miss
we upload,
Gamescom.
which is going to be basically
I'm wearing a
daily. I think
Gamescom
that's
shirt
the
today,
schedule I'm
actually.
planning, so we'll see how it
2022.
goes. Apart from that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I can smell the sauerkraut and whatever, so I'm gonna go over there now. Anyways, bye. So once again, coverage of DevCom has been brought to you by Rife. If you're looking for a beautiful and simple way to add vector menus to your game, there's no easier way than Rife. It's completely free to get started for indies. There's a link down below to get started. They also have a Discord, which I'll link down below.
What is this,
where you
Rife?
can also find more information about the product. I think it can be a great thing for making very pretty UIs and not just gray blobs on a screen. And also, once again, I just want to thank Rife because they've made this coverage and this video specifically possible because of that. So go and check them out, and thanks for watching.
Damn, I want to get sponsored. Can't with my hot takes, though. No, I'm going to give them a subscription for that. That was a nice video. I think that I wouldn't say any of the information in there is inaccurate. And I don't have too much to add, or I don't have really anything that I can contradict because it's all things that I would agree with that I've observed too and that I felt having pitched my own game. So I think it's pretty on point, and it's unfortunate, but I do think game dev will kind of bounce back from that. I do think publishers will return to being able to handle a bit more and being a bit more risky, especially if players want that, and if players aren't jumping on to the latest asset flip or the latest new simulation that Playway is pumping out, like it's the hottest new ribbed condom on the market. So, I think this is good. If you guys want to give this guy a subscription and a like on the video, go over to YouTube and do that. Other than that, thank you, YouTube, for watching this. I'm going to put this one up because I really enjoyed it. So take care, YouTube. Bye-bye. See you next time.